Welcome back. If you're coming from my Design 101 videos, this is going to be my breakdown of the Westworld intro and how it builds through a series of images to create a narrative. What I highly recommend everyone do is click in the link, watch the video. I'm going to play it without sounds and pause it a lot because that'll be necessary. In fact, I'm going to actually shift my computer slightly so that my screen of it is over here so I can see it better. I'm going to be playing this back and forth and talking about what is happening in these things. I'm going to do this a little bit interactively, and obviously I can't hear anything that you guys are saying, but I'm going to be asking some questions, perhaps slightly rhetorical, and then answering them to some degree. Hopefully, I've done this with a lot of students, so I have a general sense of what people see. Some of the things you might not recognize. And they might not have very much meaning to you. And so sometimes I have to help students because we're not a culture that's very capable of understanding symbolism very well. And that's necessary to get the full depth of what this is getting at. But I want to talk first for a moment about what is an opening credits sequence. Why do these things exist? And the first thing is this. This is where they came from. A lot of people, it takes a lot of people to make a film. They all need to get credit somehow. So at the beginning of films, there was these title cards showing all the people who did this, thanking them for being a part of it. You'll see this evolves out of theater in the program that you would get at the theater that would tell you important introductory contextual things, along with, naming the people who were involved and thanking all of them. So it's a rich history of us caring about our artists, which I love. But as you might, if you watch some older movies, you might sometimes get bored when you're watching them and you think, can't we jazz this up a bit? And that's what has happened, largely because of the work of Saul Bass in some early Hitchcock films in particular. But basically, they started to have a secondary experience, and that was, okay, if we're going to have this text up front, is there some way to make this open for the experience? And this developed, so Westworld would be considered a TV show. It happened on HBO. I think it's all done now, but there's been 4 seasons. They're excellent. I highly recommend them. But what's occurring through this thing is similar to when I've talked about the background elements. It's trying to set the theme and the stage, so to speak. And this does that really well. So as you watch through it, just think about, especially if you've never seen Westworld, just think about what does it feel like? What kind of show would you expect to happen after watching this? And if it's I would argue, if it's a good titles opening credit sequence, then your expectations will be, realized when you start watching the show. Now, there might be some reasons why it might subtly change that, but that's the general ambiance, at least, is one of the main goals. The second goal is to really highlight some of the more specific themes. You'll see this frequently from, things like an interesting intro sequence is the TV show Hannibal, with like blood but like this white cloth is throughout the whole thing, or like a white background. And, the show Hannibal is about a serial killer who eats people, and he does it through fine dining. So it's like you can see some of the specific themes that come out. Now, I don't think that's as interesting a title sequence. Otherwise, I would be going through that. But this one, Westworld Season 1, and all of the seasons actually have really specific symbolism that comes in and can give us not even just a sense of, oh, what is this going to be about? Which it's like a sci-fi Western, is like, that would be the 2 genres that come together into this show. Sci-fi, robots, Western, cowboys, horses, pistols coming together into one thing. But there are really a lot deeper themes, and really like deeply symbolic themes that come into play as well. And the intro sequence has them embedded in it in a really interesting way. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a play, and it's muted. So I'm going to talk through, what are we seeing? So that's the question. What do we see? Landscape, sunrise, then some confusion. You of course, for copyright reasons, you're going to have my my video covering part of it. But landscape, you might see here, wait a minute, it's kind of a weird landscape. There's not very many hills that have this happening. Those kind of look like ribs. And it's like, oh, that's not the sun, that's the moon, clearly. Oh, wait a minute, it's not the moon, it's like a light. It's like a uh it's like some form of surgical light or something like that. Okay, so what do we have so far? A landscape that actually turns out to be some kind of body, a sunrise that turns into a moonrise that turns into, actually, this is like a surgical light. Very strange. Then we've got this thing, this thing coming in. Got this robot arm coming in, and it is threading something. Can anyone tell what it is? Usually I have one student who can point out, oh, that's the interior of a piano. So this is like, it's like a 3D printing arm. It's got a thread and it's stringing an instrument. Just like, if you know some symbolism, that's kind of interesting. Stringed instruments, like I don't know, maybe you might think of like heartstrings. You might think of threads of fate. All right, let's keep this going. Then that same thing, now it's like threading, but it's threading bones and sinews. So that's an interesting contrast of instrument to, biological thing. I wonder if there's overlap there, perhaps. You might say, well, what is this? Like maybe that's an elbow. I don't know. What is that? Oh, a horse. So it's stringing together and creating the horse, which, if you have any familiarity with Westerns, the horse is an iconic aspect of the Western. I'll talk about that in a minute. Then we've got this, which one of my students, this is the first time I've done this for several years now, and one of my students pointed out this is one of the early photographs, one of the first photographs of, especially a sequence of photographs, was to reveal if there was a bet when a horse is in full gallop, are all of its legs off the ground at any moment in time. And that this is a reference to that. And if you watch, there it is. All of the hoofs are off the ground. So, like, there's a lot happening here. It's embedding a lot of meaning into it. So one of the things is this sense of, it's like a first, perhaps. There's a horse being created. You might also notice in this, these are the ribs. So that early landscape was this horse, and the sun rising, and then the moon rising, turning in this, and this, it was this horse's being created, being birthed. You might notice some other themes coming out of that, because it does seem like a half-dead horse. We'll get there in a moment. But then threading an eye. The eye has a Western landscape in it right there for a brief moment. This is, I believe, from Monument Valley, but so west, like desert. Again, Western landscape through the eye that's being created. It was being threaded as well. So it's like, you can see like the artificiality of this being is like it actually does perceive, but then that perception is, you can see the pupil closing, the opposite of dilating, contracting, constricting, I don't know. And it's very dark in there, which an eye is. Like, it's kind of like a weird black hole, more threading of, and then this is interesting. So it's not just the horses being made. Now we've got this human hand, and the human hand is playing a piano, which is like, I like to think about this like, so not only is the horse being made and the piano being made, but now a human being is being made. So you can see kind of levels of complexity. Still, remember, instrument, animal, human, but they're all attached, being made in the same manner, which might mean maybe they're all instruments of some sort. What is the purpose they're serving? And here you have, so the horse was running and proving its ability to fly, so to speak. The human being is like this. There could be all kinds of actions that the human could be doing. And what is it? It's playing music. This is a really interesting thing, especially today. I believe that everyone should probably watch Westworld if you can handle the violence, because so much of this theme of like, are the AI creating art? What does that mean? Can AI create art? And like, you can see that here of an artificial being playing music. Is it music? Is maybe one of the things you could be considering. Here we go. Let's keep going. So it's playing music. Then I'm not gonna, for the sake of YouTube. I don't know what YouTube does with these things. I don't know the rules, but that was a moment that you can. There was some kind of intercourse there. So not only are the human beings playing music, but you have two artificial human beings engaged in sexual intercourse, but they're like not quite complete beings. And also, like, that seems kind of strange. Like, why would robots, like, I like to talk to my students, like, why would anyone design a Roomba to seduce and engage in intercourse with an Alexa? What's the point of that? Like, what are they going, like, they're not going to make babies. Do they feel pleasure? Like, what's the point of a robot playing music? You would assume it's for us, but does it, like, what's, maybe, I guess, so we can watch them engage, like, which, that's some people are into that, I suppose. But very interesting themes here in the sense of artificiality of not just music and art and culture, but then love and emotion and human connection. There, that is being made artificially as well. Continuing on, so more playing the piano, more of the intimacy, the West in the eye again. You see, oh yeah, the human beings really are being made. And then there's, what is this? That is the revolver portion of a gun. That gun that you see right here, this one's kind of really hard to see, like if you're not used to looking at guns, but this is the barrel of a gun pointed above us. It's like this pit crew engine, like assembling of the gun in a very precise and manufactured manner. So this is like the handle down here and the barrel pointing at us, that gun coming together. And I'll talk about this in the next scene. So more of it being the gun being made, and then it's immediately, I need to move my, now we need to move this back down over here. It's immediately being handed off. And notice, like, let me back it up for a second. What happens, like, when it is handed off, like, immediately being fired as soon as it's put into this black gloved hand. So it's like, you get a lot of themes here that are Western centric, such as the gun and like, what's the point of the gun? It's not to holster it, it's to fire it. So it's immediately being fired. Who's holding that gun? We don't know yet, but here we've got a face. I like this moment, like a feminine face. It does look kind of foreboding, but it looks like a human face to some degree. Maybe there's something strange happening. Oh yeah, yep, like that was like a weird zombie face or something. So it's like maybe she's not quite complete, but she's like part alive, part dead, something like that. Maybe horrific, at least. From this, we're starting to get some of the more serious themes. Before you might have had like, hey, there's going to be horses. They're going to be like kind of creepy looking, but horses. And then there's music, and hey, there's sex. These are all the things we love in our TV shows. And then and here's the death, I guess. Especially when we see, oh, it's her on the horse with the pistol. We know that her face is incomplete on the other side. She's riding that horse. And this is where, like, especially if you've got some sense of interpretations of symbolic, languages and whatnot, you might say, well, that's kind of a pale horse. And there's a thing called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The 4th is a pale horse, and on it rides death. This is where, like, I like to talk about, like, think about the icons we've gotten from Westerns in this already. Horse. Why is the horse important to the West? Because it allowed for significant traversal of wild terrain. That's why horses were used, specifically horseback riding. Oh, this thumbs up thing. I always forget about that. But so the horse comes in, and it, like, the Americas did not have horses. As the horses came in, it drastically changes the entire circumstances of everything that's going on here. There's all kinds of things that affected the European, whatever you want to call it, colonization, settling of the Americas. But the introduction of horses literally changed the way that the indigenous people interacted with their environment in huge degrees, to where some of the tribes became masters of horses. So like the horse was the changing technology of America first. Then firearm. But it's not just a rifle. Like the rifle, specifically the lever action rifle, has a way greater impact on the American Wild West. But there's like, what's the significance of the revolver? You're not hunting with the revolver. You're not killing bison like you were with the lever action or with the Gatling cannon. You're not murdering, just massacring all of the bison and buffalo and all of that. Instead, that is a specific. It's like why do we need a revolver on our hip? What's it for? Close combat. Close combat against what? It's like, yeah, snakes, sure, bears, maybe. Like, hopefully not. Hopefully you're not that close to a bear. No, it's for men. Like the revolver is a human killer. It is for protection against men. Why? Because you're on the frontier. You're on the edge where there is no law and order. You can see all of the archetypal themes coming together. So you have a rider, a female rider carrying a pistol on a horse. That is the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, death. And she is in the Western garb with all of the things that are saying she's here to kill humans, which is interesting if you know anything about the show. Like this is symbolically telling you a lot. And then what happens? We had the hands playing the piano, but then they pull back, and the piano itself is still playing, which tells us something about the piano. Specifically, what type of piano is it? A player piano. So that piano, like, was it being played by the half-made hands, or were they also following a script? Are all of these things just following a script, and out of that first technology, the automated music machine, out of that emerges an entity as if it's being birthed up out of it. Now it's behind it, I know, but it's like being birthed up out of it in some, like, visually. Again, remember, I'm talking about how do these visuals interact? Like, we've got this thing that we've seen, it was strung together, and what's emerging out of it. And here we've got this. I want to point this out. Just remember, so I don't have to back up. There's a pool of water here on the ground. It's in the shape of a square. Why does that matter? We'll see in a minute. Got more of the Westworld, the Western world. We got this figure, and oh, what is that? And almost always I have someone in my class who knows Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man, it's that guy. It's in this pose. He's in a circle and a square. What is that all about? It's about sacred geometry has a problem it's always trying to solve, and that is, how do you square the circle? The circle generally represents the heavens. The square represents the earth. This is where we get the term the four corners of the earth. How do you make them come together? And geometers, people who do geometry, whatever they're called, mathematicians, the alchemists, all of this, we're constantly trying to figure out, how do you get a circle to transform and work within a square? And Da Vinci's drawing of the Vitruvian Man is showing that a man fits in a square if he puts his arms straight out. And then if he does the kind of star shape, he fits inside of a circle. Now, it's a lie in that the Vitruvian Man is missing some vertebrae in order to make this work. Most of us are not in the perfect proportions, but it's a statement being made about the sense of what squares the circle. The Vitruvian Man says the human being does, or perhaps the masculine does, because women have different proportions than men generally. So it's altogether kind of a weird thing, but if you remember, so now we have the artificial formed, this I would argue is genderless at this moment. Like, probably it looks like it's going to be masculine, but obviously, like, this is the title sequence. I don't think they're going to show all of the genitalia yet, but we've got a artificial being inside of a circle being submerged into a square. And what's happening to that? So they're being submerged into a strange milky liquid. I would argue that is like a birth. Like, this liquid is milk. And it's almost like this is the birth of a new kind of automated thing that is in human shape. So if you know the plot of Westworld, it is that there is a park where human beings, you pay $10,000 a day to go to this park where everything is artificial. There are extremely attractive human beings who they call hosts, and you can go do whatever you want. You can choose to be the black hat or the white hat, which is, the evil guy, the bad guy, or the good guy. You can follow these quests, you can role play, you can shoot and murder and rape and pillage and do all these things, which is why, like, you should, if you don't like especially sexual violence, there's a lot of that, especially in this first season. Trigger warning, that's what it's called. So all of these are like building up, coming together with some strange themes that you can see. Like, it's not showing you everything that happens, but it's definitely telling you a lot of things. So, and then like the logo, Westworld fades, and then, it's more title sequence. So what are some of the themes that are going to be occurring here? Battling AI, certainly. Is it real? Is it alive? Is it just following a script, with that hand floating away from the piano? That's definitely going to be a question. There's like this, am I forcing the biblical motif of the horse rider? Starts in darkness, let there be light. And then out of the light first comes land. Like, it's all here. There's a lot of the themes here. This notion of the horse and the pistol, the individuality of Westworld, these beings, are they becoming individuals? Are they really conscious? And that's what the whole theme of the first season is about. It's all hinted at here with these visual images. It's a masterful way of subtly implanting them to where it's one of the only shows that when I binge watch it, I always watch the title sequence every time. I never skip it, because every episode you rewatch, when the next one starts, you rewatch the title sequence and you realize, oh, that was referenced. Like the thing that just happened when the character was questioning the nature of his reality. Oh, it's in the title sequence in some mysterious way, like something you didn't quite see, especially when my student pointed out again this here of like, oh, the point of the gamble. There was a gamble, or a wager. Does the horse's feet ever come off the ground? Like, what they're trying to understand the nature of how a horse runs. And the real question here throughout the whole entire show, are the hosts sentient or are they not? Are they just really good, passing the Turing test? Are they actually making love? Are they actually making art? Are they actually death dealers? And that's what the whole show is about. And you can see it all, even from the reference there to the eye to, there's just so many visual images coming where it's creating this sequence of events that sets the tone and the themes, and then it actually like really deeply reveals a lot of, I would call it like what the show wrestles with. And I won't tell you the ending, no spoilers here, but it's great. I think that's all I have to say. I might do a video on season 2 and season 3. I think season 4 has the same intro as season 3, but season 2 and season 3 drastically change the intros. So if folks are interested, I'll do those as well. But the season 2 introduces a buffalo instead of a horse, which is unique. And season 3 introduces an eagle instead of a horse or a buffalo, which is also unique. It also does a couple different changes. So you can see here, white and black are the main theme, the colors, which again, light and dark, it's the beginning of creation. In fact, there's a line that Ford says, great scene. There's a great breakdown, I'll link it, that Nerd Writer did of this scene where one of the God figures lines is, in the beginning, which are the first words of Genesis. And the second season, it's all red. The third season, it goes back to white and black for a variety of reasons. But I have lots of thoughts. I really do think that the whole entire series as a whole is really great, especially in the dawning of AI that we're in. It's a very interesting contemplation of like, what is our relationship to AI? What exactly is happening? So if you're interested in that, you should watch the show. And stick through second season. It's hard the first time through, but once you know the storyline of the second season, and you can track, there's just a bunch of time jumping, which is not very helpful. Once you can track all of that, it's really good. Okay, I'm done.